The morning began with a mistake so small it should have meant nothing, yet it became the turning point in a man's life who had forgotten what it meant to simply breathe. Henry Callister, one of the youngest CEOs in Chicago, walked into a quiet corner cafe on a cold Tuesday morning, thinking it was the place where his next high-stake investor meeting was supposed to happen. He looked polished and powerful, tailored suit, expensive coat, leather briefcase, but beneath that sharp exterior was a man carrying invisible fractures. His company was on the brink of collapse, his board was growing impatient, his family had drifted away from him, and his heart had slowly been conditioned to feel nothing but pressure. He believed he was walking into another day of tense handshakes and numbers. Instead, he walked into something he didn't know he desperately needed. And it all started when he sat down at the wrong table, with the right stranger. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected moments that change everything, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps the channel more than you know. Henry sat there staring at his watch, his jaw tight as the clock ticked closer to the meeting time. Yet no one arrived. The cafe was unusually warm, filled with the soft hum of quiet music and the smell of cinnamon, something out of place in his fast-paced, chaotic life. For a moment, he felt strangely out of rhythm, like he'd stepped into someone else's world. His phone buzzed with messages, board reminders, investor questions, problems waiting for him, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. His heart beat too loudly, too painfully. He didn't realize how exhausted he was until he felt the weight of silence pressing over him. He bowed his head and exhaled, rubbing his temples. He looked less like a CEO and more like a man trying not to collapse. Across the cafe, a woman named Claire Weston noticed him. Claire was the type of person who carried warmth, like a quiet blessing, soft-hearted, observant, someone who naturally gravitated toward people who seemed lost. She wasn't loud, she wasn't forceful, but she had a talent for sensing pain in others the way most people sensed weather shifts. She had come to the cafe that morning to work on her art portfolio, something she'd been struggling with for months, burying fear under persistence. When she spotted Henry, she didn't see a wealthy executive or a polished professional. She saw someone sitting alone, someone who looked like the world had taken more from him than he could give back. Claire walked over slowly, unsure why she felt drawn but unable to ignore it. She gently sat down across from him, offering a soft, kind smile, a gesture so simple Henry didn't know how to react. At first he looked surprised, almost confused, but then something in him loosened. He felt an unexpected sense of safety he hadn't felt in years. It was the first moment in a long time that someone looked at him without wanting anything. Henry didn't explain who he was, didn't talk about the company, the pressure, the crisis. He simply sat with her, letting the silence settle like a balm. In that stillness, his inner world began shifting, almost imperceptibly. Claire talked about the little things, sketching, how she loved observing people, how life felt softer when you slowed down. Her voice was steady, warm, grounding. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. She filled the space with something he hadn't known he was missing, gentle humanity. For the first time in months, Henry sipped his coffee without feeling like he was racing a clock. He watched the steam drift upward, watched the light through the tall windows, and realized how long it had been since he noticed anything ordinary. Claire's presence reminded him that the world wasn't only made of deadlines, financial reports, and battles. There were still corners of softness left. He had just forgotten where to look. But this moment of peace broke abruptly when Henry received a message from his assistant. "You're at the wrong cafe. Meeting has moved. Investors are waiting." His stomach tightened. His heartbeat quickened. Panic rushed back in. He stood up too fast, nearly knocking over his cup. Claire looked up at him with concern, but Henry didn't know how to explain the storm suddenly raging inside him. He hadn't meant to find refuge in a stranger, but he felt foolish for letting his guard down, even for a moment. He apologized stiffly, reached for his coat, and prepared to run back into the chaos of his life. But something in his expression made Claire reach out toward him, not physically but emotionally, with just a few quiet words that caught him off guard. "You look like someone who carries too much alone." It was the first time anyone had seen through him in years. Henry froze, breath trapped. He didn't turn around right away, but her words landed so deeply he felt them echo in his bones. When he finally looked at her, really looked at her, he felt something shift, something he couldn't name yet, something he didn't want to lose. He thanked her for sitting with him, for offering a moment of peace he didn't think he deserved. Claire only nodded, not prying, not questioning, just wishing him well with genuine sincerity. Henry walked out of the cafe feeling lighter and heavier at the same time, as though he'd been reminded of something he wasn't ready to understand. Over the next few days, as he navigated difficult boardrooms, made impossible decisions, and faced harsh realities, he kept thinking about that cafe, about the mistake that landed him there, about the woman who made him feel human again. He kept remembering the warmth in her voice, the softness in her eyes. Something inside him ached to return, and he did. The next week, Henry went back to that same cafe early in the morning. He didn't know if Claire would be there. He didn't want to seem intrusive, but the truth was, he needed that space. Again, not the cafe itself, but the feeling of peace he found in her company. When he walked in and saw her sitting at the same table, sketching quietly, he felt an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Claire looked up, surprised but happy. Henry wasn't used to being welcomed without expectation, and it softened him further. He sat down and they talked, not about work, not about pressure, but about life, courage, and the little things that happen when you least expect them. Henry wasn't used to sharing, but with Claire, his guard fell naturally, and Claire wasn't used to being truly seen, but Henry listened in a way no one else did. As weeks passed, their meetings became less accidental and more intentional. Henry would bring her coffee. She would show him her drawings. She helped him slow down, see the world differently. He helped her believe her art mattered, that she mattered. Their worlds, once so distant, began to intertwine gently, without force or expectation. Henry's company eventually stabilized, not because of luck, but because he started making decisions with clarity instead of fear. He began treating people differently, valuing connection, empathy, and balance. Claire's influence seeped into every part of his life. She reminded him that leadership didn't require a cold heart, just a steady one. But the most beautiful shift happened not in boardrooms or cafes, but in Henry's heart. The man who once lived under suffocating pressure slowly learned to breathe. The CEO who walked into the wrong cafe one morning began walking into it intentionally, because that was where his life found meaning again. Near the end of winter, when Chicago's skies softened and the city thawed, Henry finally realized what he had been avoiding. He didn't just find comfort in Claire. He found hope. Quiet, sincere, life-changing hope. She hadn't saved him. She had simply reminded him he was worth saving. And one crisp morning, Henry told her the truth. Not with dramatic words or grand gestures, but with honesty. He told her that her kindness changed him, that she showed him life could be more than responsibility and pressure. Claire listened quietly, her eyes warm, her heart open. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his, offering that same gentle reassurance she had given him the first day. It was enough. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and let someone else feel the warmth of this moment too. Before we end, I have one special request. Please comment below. What small act of kindness changed your life? And as Henry and Claire continued meeting, continued growing, continued gently transforming each other's worlds, one truth became clear: a mistake brought them together, but kindness kept them there.